All right. Hello, everyone. Taluka here from Markers and Minions. Come into the phone. There we go.
I'm Jenna. I am a special education teacher, and I help Taluka on the side.
And she's a teacher at my daughter's school. So we live in the same neighborhood. So tonight we're going to be talking about Unit 5 and different ways to introduce this unit. Really this whole month we're going to be focusing on Unit 5. This is one where I like to talk about it. I like to share pictures about it because I really enjoy Unit 5 and my students do also. Some of the other units we won't spend this much time on, but Unit 5 we will.
I think technology is relevant. The kids
Yeah, exactly. It's relevant, it's interesting, and it kind of ties in a lot of the other standards that we need to be teaching as well. So it's just a really well-designed benchmark unit. All right, so let's talk about our schedule. So tonight is just unit introduction ideas. Next week we'll go into a plan with me video. If you've never seen one of those, I used to do them all the time. Back in like 2017, 2018, I'd do them every Sunday. We'd all join in and do plan with me videos. We're going to be planning probably using the Florida edition for 3rd grade. So if you're a teacher in Florida, 3rd grade teacher in Florida, you'll be lucky. Everyone else will still benefit. You'll still be able to apply the same strategies and kind of follow along with your edition, your grade level. But yeah, 3rd grade Florida teachers, the work will be done for you. And then the week after that, we'll talk about extension ideas and activities because I have a million of them. It always coincided, this unit coincided with open house for us. And at my school, there was this huge emphasis on open house. So my walls were covered in different activities. So we'll spend a whole video talking about fun things to do with Unit 5.
There's a lot of fun stuff.
Indeed.
Actually, yeah.
All right, so we have the unit theme here for each grade level. Do you want to talk about them? Go ahead.
So for kindergarten, it covers mostly technology at home and school. The essential question is, why do we use technology? So just kind of like introducing kids to technology. I feel like silly saying that because my son is 5 and he's already been introduced to technology. So
like years ago, this is old news.
Yeah. Yeah, here's technology again, buddy. You've been seeing this since you were 2. 1st grade is technology at work. So I think that would be where you would maybe kind of deviate a little bit, just because I feel like a 1st grader doesn't really have the biggest concept of work. And so more or less like maybe technology at home, or how do mommy and daddy use technology, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that kind of might, I know my son, he's 5 and he's like, put your phone down. So they might, I'm sure, say that.
It's like the purpose is like talking about how you can use technology as a tool, right? So in the most relatable sense for them, it will be like how they use technology at school and at home. Yeah.
2nd grade is solving problems through technology. The essential question is, where do ideas for inventions come from? 3rd grade is advancements in technology. What is the value of innovation? 4th grade is technology for a green future. How do we make decisions about developing new technology? 5th grade, technology's impact on society. What value does technology bring to people's lives? And then 6th grade is technology in the 21st century. How do we take responsibility in making advances in technology?
Mm-hmm. So when I was teaching a combo, I thought this unit was really good for 2nd and 3rd grade. There's a lot of similarities there, so I would often combine a lot of those lessons, and the theme is all around like inventors and their contributions, and that kind of spirals as you move on as well. In 4th grade, we made a note that that's a really great unit to have a debate. So it's all about like a green future and ways that we incorporate green technology into our society, and so that could really lend itself well to what's like Socratic seminars and debates, classroom debates.
Friendly debates, they call it now. Just everyone be nice to each other.
Yeah, be nice about it, okay? And then 5th grade, a lot of the texts focus on the Industrial Revolution. So it's a really cool unit in 5th grade, in my opinion. And so there's a lot of crossover into social studies standards.
And that could be also where you could pull in like news ELA articles or Newsella articles, maybe researching different inventors, or, I know that they hit inventors hard in 2nd and 3rd grade, but then for 5th grade with the Industrial Revolution, how did those people basically change the course of American history?
Yeah,
so
with technology.
Right.
It's kind of like 4th is the future, 5th is the past, 6th is the present, so taking responsibility for our technology in the present day. All right. Okay, so those are the themes. You can see how it develops across the grade levels. So if you're in a later grade, this is not going to be the kid's first time learning about tech. We have a list of read-alouds. So back in Unit 4, we shared a bunch of fractured fairy tales, and teachers seem to love them. So I found a list of read-alouds for Unit 5 that are fun. And then, of course, if you have any others that you love that you want to share with others, just go ahead and leave them in the comments.
A couple people mentioned also this science and history video that they said their 5th graders love, so I was gonna look into that also. Yeah, they think that's hilarious.
We should link that.
Yeah,
we'll find it. Okay, so let's save that one. Hold on. So the first one is, what do you do with an idea? Okay, so this is super relevant. I mean, starting I would say in 2nd, 3rd grade, because they're talking about how inventions they start as an idea from a problem and how that leads to a solution. And then we have Rosie Revere, engineer.
That's the sister book of the Ada Twist. Yeah.
Ada Twist, scientist. And then the Lorax, this is obviously a Dr. Seuss book we've all seen, but it really examines the before and the after of technology and the negative impacts of technology. So it shows a different perspective, I would say, to what our texts and benchmark are showing us, like all the contributions and the advancements and all that, and how they're mainly positive. This one shows the other side of that story. So we'll talk about this more in a couple weeks when we go over projects, but there's a whole art project that I do after reading the Lorax, and I connect it to Unit 5 and ELA. And then, of course, the Who Was books. These are awesome for older readers. Who was Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, and the Wright brothers. All right. Okay, so anchor chart time?
Yes.
Let's do it. So this is the anchor chart. I share this for each unit. I always start introducing a unit with a visual. So I've got this visual graphic in the middle, and then I come up with big ideas that I want my students to know before moving into a unit, and I incorporate vocabulary and just important information that they're going to need to know in order to build background. So this is also part of my planned formula line, where I've created anchor charts for every single grade level, every single unit. They're printable like this, and then they also come with a student version that has fill in the blanks. So some teachers take this a step further, and as they're filling out the chart with their students during a whole group lesson, they're having students also fill in blanks to kind of take notes and for accountability and engagement. All right, so here's our chart. Typically it's all pencil, and then I sit down with my students and I fill this out, and I talk to them as I'm filling it out, and I give them lots of opportunities to turn and talk and digest and process what I'm talking about. For the sake of time, I already did some of the colors here, but what I would do first is talk about how Unit 5 is all about inventors and what they create and what they innovate. So we've got those words here in the middle, and I chose a light bulb because that's a visual representation for ideas and inventions. And then I'm titling this poster The Cycle of Innovation, because basically we're going to show students how a problem then gets turned into a solution where there's an impact, and then how that leads to other inventions down the line. All right, so I need red. So when you're doing this, you would color code your big ideas, and what I would do when it's all pencil is just put like a little dot, so I know like, okay, this section's red. This one I'd put a little dot in orange, just to keep me on track as I'm teaching. So first, people who are inventors, oh yeah, we want to start with orange for a reason. People who are inventors share these same characteristics or qualities. They think outside the box, meaning that they are very open-minded and creative in their thinking. They don't necessarily see the world the same way that we see the world. They see other solutions and issues that we might not otherwise see very obviously, that aren't very apparent. They are persistent, meaning that they can't give up. They stick with it and they see things through. In order to do that, they need to be very strong-willed. They can't be easily defeated. They stay motivated. They are smart individuals. They have a growth mindset, which is basically what we're talking about here, but we talk about growth mindset a lot in the classroom, so we might as well bring in that language. And these people, inventors, are creative. So what they do first, what leads them to invent, is they identify a problem. They find a need. I'll be back on the screen in a second. They identify or find a need in society. And that might not necessarily, I explain to students how that might not necessarily be like a huge problem that's apparent. It can be something super simple. We see some of the like silliest inventions sometimes. But if there's a need, there is a problem.
Right.
So I kind of just talk about, it doesn't mean like a problem, like something's terribly wrong. And then what they do is they brainstorm solutions. So they think about that problem and how it can be solved.
I think about like phone cases, which that wouldn't have been like a problem 10 years ago, or like the people that have like the loopy case, which I dropped my phone, but I don't have a loopy case, but just like that would be something that would be relevant that maybe wasn't relevant
Before.
Right.
Yeah. Before iPhones.
Problem, and solution.
All right, and so what happens next is we have this problem, they brainstorm the solutions for this need, and then that leads to an impact. An impact is where we see a change in society because they have come up with an invention that's going to be a solution to this need. When there's a solution, people's lives are better or easier. So they've made an improvement to people's lives through their innovative thinking and their solutions. One of the impacts is society can change. That's what society changes. And then the need is met. But then I point out that it doesn't stop there. Someone who shares or has these qualities and characteristics doesn't just stop there. They're always looking for needs. They're always looking to see how things can be improved upon. And that's how this becomes a cycle. Because now we have a solution to this problem, but then someone else might come around and be like, and say like, wait, I can do this better. Or something, a circumstance has changed now, the screen is now glass on the back of the iPhone 2 now. That shatters now as well.
Yeah.
Whatever. So it leads to other inventions. So let me go on this side again.
Plus people are always, wanting to make it better or less expensive, but then that doesn't always necessarily mean, I think that's a good, conversation, especially with older grades. Doesn't necessarily always mean it's the best just because it's cheaper.
Yeah. So new needs are identified. There are more possible solutions. I hope I can be heard. I'm like crouching down under the desk, basically. People's lives can always get better or easier. All right, so they were better and easier before, but they can always continue to get better and easier. So then what I would do after talking about this cycle of innovation is I would have students talk about a technological impact on their own lives And this always like breaks my heart every time I do it, because I'm like, so let's talk about a positive that technology has had on your life, and then let's talk about a negative, and they'll tell you the negatives, you know, and how they fully understand how this is a double-edged sword. So what I do is I'll print out those questions, like basically guiding questions to get them thinking, very open-ended, and then I will put them on the bulletin board next to this, and then with their Post-its, they would write their response, and then they come up and put their response under the question, and then we have that on display, and that's kind of like our springboard and our anchor for the entire unit. Okay, and then this is also a great chart to transfer to what you're reading in the text. So like in 3rd grade, for example, you're going to read about Thomas Edison. So then put Thomas Edison in the middle, write his qualities. What problem did he solve? What was the impact? What came afterwards? How were his inventions improved upon? So you can apply this to whatever else you're reading, or the Industrial Revolution. So you can cross grade levels and topics, because this is meant to be really broad and provide the background knowledge so that then you can get into your text with your students and make it
more meaningful. Yeah, make connections.
Understandable.
Once you make this is like a living document. So you would take this and like put it somewhere in your classroom. I've seen people say like, what should I be doing? You have to reference this like the whole
time.
So like have it hung up. If they have it in their notebooks, like reference it when they're in their learning.
You can print this off for them.
Right. So then they're always, you're referencing it, they're going back to it. So it's not just like you made it for
decoration.
Just it needs to be, you know, referenced a lot, and I think that's what makes it important and meaningful for your students, and then it makes it a good tool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just to make the anchor chart for it to be pretty is kind of silly.
Yeah. And I have a tip. So if you think of it, your unit as the 3 weeks as like I do, we do, you do, you can apply that principle to the anchor charts as well. So in week 1 of the unit, you've made this chart. It's you talking, you're teaching, you're providing the background knowledge. And then week 2, maybe that's when you have your students recreate this chart with you after you read the text on Thomas Edison or something about the Industrial Revolution or whatever it is. And that's part of your guided lesson. Maybe that can replace your relevant details lesson, because you're basically doing the same thing just with your anchor chart. And then week 3, have students either on their own or with their small groups use the week 3 text and recreate the chart as well, but on their own without you. So there's sort of that gradual release, and it's revisiting this over and over and over again. This is the scaffold still. Yeah.
Makes it more meaningful too, that you're not just giving them the chart just to give it to them.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so those are the main ways that we came up with for introducing the unit. So having awesome read-alouds, doing an anchor chart, and then those questions. I have a picture that shows my bulletin board where I had the questions. It was actually at the bottom, and I had 3 of them. And I got those questions from Benchmark. I think it was in that unit introduction lesson in the TRS, you know, where it says like open up the unit intro video. I think it was that one, and it gave 3 guiding questions, and I just printed them out.
Yeah, I'll write them down. Yes.
Okay.
I'll put them. It will be in the comments.
Yeah, because they're really great questions, and then you have that element where kids can come up and reflect. And then you know what? 2nd week, have them do it again. Answer it again and put their Post-it note on top of their previous week's response, or at the end of the unit rather. Beginning of the unit response, end of the unit response. How has your view changed? Okay, so next week we'll dive into this a little bit further, and we'll talk about planning. Not necessarily planning
specific to each grade level.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into small groups or anything like that. We're just going to plan out your ELA lessons. We'll go over some strategies that I used when I was planning in order to help myself stay sane with the program. If you have any questions about planning, please let us know. We'll also send an email out and post in the group. Let us know what are your struggles when it comes to planning out your ELA lessons. Is it that it's taking too much time? Is it that you feel like the lessons are repetitive or there's not enough? Or just let us know what your concerns are. And then the week after we'll go into extensions. How do you do the gradual release model based on the weekly lesson plans? So not talking about my anchor chart, do you mean? The weekly lesson plans, the gradual release model, if you're talking about like for example, the comprehension or close reading lessons, there's a lot of repetition, right? So you're teaching one skill in week 1 and then again maybe in week 2 and again in week 3, or maybe weeks 1 and 3 or 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of an opportunity to revisit skills and strategies, and we'll talk about that like a lot next week when we're planning. And so there is that opportunity for gradual release that way. And then of course over the span of the year, you're going to be revisiting skills like in units 1 and now in unit 5 that like, you might be able to build upon the skills that you were already touching on in a previous unit. If that answers your question. If not, just send me a follow-up. All right.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you guys next week for Planned with Us.
Plan with us. Yay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.